Hello guys. So in this video, we're going to discuss a very interesting and exciting topic called postbiotics. This has recently taken the nutrition field by storm. Postbiotics are often referred to as the next generation functional food. This might sound new to some of you. So, idea of today's video is to break down to you what postbiotics are, how they are formed in the body, how to improve their concentration in the body. Then we'll discuss some of the mechanism of action of postbiotics in body to confer good gut health and overall health. Before going to the crux of today's discussion, it's very important you understand what functional foods are. Generally, when we consume food, what we expect to derive from food is basic macronutrients and basic micronutrients that can help us derive energy or that can help us gain energy. However, with functional food, it's a little bit different. Functional foods are those foods, apart from giving you nutrition, they confer some sort of health benefit. So they are developed or modified in a manner that it can help improve your overall health. It can boost performance of certain systems within your body, like your immune system. And third one is to reduce risk of a disease or prevent a disease from altogether occurring. Now, how are these functional foods essentially made? It can be divided into three categories. The first one is naturally occurring functional food, like oats, which is rich source of beta glucan. And this beta glucan is known to have heart healing properties. Second one, garlic, which is known to have allicin, which can fight cancer. Finally, you have blueberries, rich sources of antioxidants that can scavenge free radicals. The second type of functional food is fortified foods, wherein certain functional food is added to a particular food product, lacking that functional component. Example, milk fortified with vitamin D. You have some amount of vitamin D present in milk, but the quantity is so low that add functional when you add vitamin D as a functional ingredient, it compensates and it kind of becomes functional food. Similarly, when you add calcium to orange juice, it becomes functional food as calcium is required for bone health. Finally, you have modified foods. What I mean by modified foods, they are actually grown or manufactured in plants like your margarine, and functional ingredient is not part of the ingredient list of your modified food, but they are added for the health benefit that they confer. Example, plant sterols are added to your margarine because it is known to reduce cholesterol level. So that forms definition of what is included as functional food. What is not included is beyond the scope of today's discussion. A look at this slide. There are two terminologies that you are all very familiar with: probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics, we know they are live microorganisms present in fermented food products. And prebiotics, on the other hand, they are complex carbohydrates or dietary fiber which cannot be easily digested by your digestive system. So what ends up happening to them? They enter gut, wherein they are acted upon by the gut microbiota. In the process of probiotic acting on prebiotic, there are several beneficial compounds released. These beneficial compounds are called postbiotics. Examples include short chain fatty acids, enzymes, amino acids, vitamins. We are very much familiar with sources of prebiotics and probiotics. So if you look at the left hand side, you have sources of prebiotics like whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and sources of probiotics like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurt. But when we talk about postbiotics, one thing we have to remember is not all microorganisms can produce beneficial compounds. Only certain species or strains are capable of producing beneficial compounds called postbiotics. Example, you have yeast, lactic acid bacteria, bifidobacteria. So yeast, it has been used in production of wine from time immemorial. It has been also used to produce beer. This Saccharomyces cerevisiae, it's used as yeast itself, yeast cells, yeast culture, or nutritional yeast in pharmaceutical and nutraceutical product formulations. Second, you have lactic acid bacteria. Under this umbrella, you have lactobacilli, lactococci, pedococci. And what kind of postbiotics do they release? They release short chain fatty acids, bacteriocins, exopolysaccharides, and conjugated linoleic acid. Finally comes bifidobacteria, which is very much relevant to infants and not adults. They are capable of producing, synthesizing conjugated linoleic acid, exopolysaccharides, and bacteriocins. So far, we've looked at definition of postbiotics and we also looked at sources of postbiotics. But as a food science student, it's essential that you understand what falls within the scope of postbiotics definition and what falls outside the scope of postbiotics definition. So, in the year 2021, because a lot of attention was given to postbiotics, the International Scientific Association for Probiotics and Prebiotics, they gave a definition, a comprehensive definition, which defines postbiotics as a preparation of inanimate microorganisms and or their components that confers a health benefit on the host. That means postbiotics can be whole, dead microorganisms, fragments of their cell walls, certain substances that are released by these microorganisms like peptides. Compared to probiotics, postbiotics are safer as they do not require activity of any live bacteria. This means it is ideal for people who are immunocompromised, elderly, pregnant ladies, and infants. For declaring a component as beneficial, it's important that we decipher the mechanism of action. So now we're going to talk about mechanism of action of postbiotics. Most of the mechanisms mentioned here, they are based on research carried out on probiotics. All we are doing is extending it to include postbiotics. So the first mechanism of action is antioxidation. Certain probiotics like lactic acid bacteria, bifidobacteria, they are known to exert antioxidation capabilities through various channels. Example, metal ion chelation, antioxidant generation, upregulation of antioxidant system of the host, and even to certain extent gene expression. So if we are deriving postbiotics from such bacteria, they can also possess some sort of antioxidant capabilities. Example, when we take a look at beta glucan, which is a component of fungal cell wall, what it does is it tries to target singlet oxygen, which is capable of producing free radicals. And that way it is protecting damage or to damage that can be caused to DNA and RNA by free radicals. Second one is immune regulation. Probiotics, they have the capacity to act with certain parts or components of immune system like lymphocytes, macrophages, epithelial cells, and thereby trigger immune response. Similarly, if you're talking about postbiotics, especially inactive microorganisms that are used as postbiotics, they contain several structures, cell wall components that can similarly possess immunomodulatory properties as they have the capacity to attach to certain receptor sites of the immune system. Third one is gut microbiota modulation. Gut microbiota can be changed in three different ways. The first one is presence of antimicrobial substances like bacteriocins that is capable of killing pathogenic microorganisms. The second one is organic acid production. Certain species of lactic acid bacteria, they are capable of producing short chain fatty acids. like butyric acid, acetic acid. And what this does to gut is it reduces the pH of gut, only facilitating growth of those organisms that are acid tolerant. And lactic acid bacteria itself is acid tolerant. Finally, there are certain cell components or structures that enable addition of these cells to the intestinal wall, thereby not giving chance for pathogenic addition to the intestinal cell wall. Last but not the least, strengthening the gut barrier. Now, the gut barrier is made of two important cells, mucosal cells and epithelial cells, which are held together with help of tight junction proteins, all of which impart permeability to cell. In case of gastrointestinal disorders or irritable bowel syndrome, there is disruption of this intestinal layer. Several studies have gone on to show that lactic acid bacteria, they're good at enhancing the intestinal barrier property. The nitty-gritties of how they do it, it is not very evident. But based on that, we can say certain compounds like bacteriocins, lipoteichoic acid, short-chain fatty acid also can aid in strengthening the gut barrier through a mechanism similar to what is used by lactic acid bacteria. So an obvious question may arise, where is it being currently applied? One great example is infant formula. Some manufacturers, they tend to use strains of both Bifidobacterium brevis and Streptococcus thermophilus. They add these strains during fermentation process, and after the fermentation is done, they inactivate these compounds. The compounds are still present in infant milk formula along with fermentation metabolites and then sold. Such an infant formula is especially useful for preterm babies. Why? Because in case of preterm babies, mothers would not have started lactating was before the due date. The mother's body needs some time to adjust, get used to the fact, only then she will start lactating. During that period, if the preterm babies are fed this infant milk formula, they can develop a gut very similar to breastfed babies. Apart from that, it can also be used to treat GI tract disorders like diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, and also estrogen deficiency in menopausal women. So, to wrap it all up, we can say postbiotics are powerful byproducts of prebiotic and probiotic activity that is known to offer some sort of health benefit. If you want to increase the amount of postbiotics in your body, you have to take a diet rich in prebiotics and probiotics. Not all strains of yeast bacteria can synthesize postbiotics. Very specific strains only can synthesize postbiotics like short chain fatty acids, bacteriocins, and exopolysaccharides. We also discussed mechanism of action. We saw the way it offers or confers health benefit is through four major pathways: antioxidation, boosting immune response, modulating gut microbiota, and strengthening the gut barrier. So we concluded this by stating where it is being currently used. It is used for preterm babies, for treating digestive disorders, and in future it might be applicable to treat several menopausal symptoms. Thank you guys for staying with me through the video. If you have any queries, drop them in the comment and I'll get back to you at the earliest.